Okay, I have the privilege and honor to introduce our testimony tonight. Trina, come on up. Yeah. So Trina's mama reached out almost 2 years ago now. Yeah, and she said, I want my daughter to come to Celebrate Recovery. And I said, all right, I'll meet her at the doors. And so that's what happened. And going on 2 years with Trina, and she's also on our leadership team, and she's just such a blessing, and you might hear her often be called Cha-Cha-Cha Trina, so just so everybody can know that. But anyway, so I'm going to hand it over to Trina, and then when you're done, go ahead and stay up here, and then we'll come up and pray.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. In step 2, it says, earnestly believe that God exists, that I matter to him, and that he has the power to help me recover. In Matthew 5:4, it says, happy are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. I am a grateful believer in Christ who struggles with codependency, anxiety, grief and loss, and abandonment, who is celebrating victory over lying and drug use. My name is Trina. Hi, guys. I was born June 1979 in Colorado Springs, Colorado, to my parents, Tim and Karen. We lived in Colorado for a few short months after I was born, and then moved to Corvallis to live with Karen's parents, my grandparents, for about a year. In December of 1980, my brother Tom was born. In 1981, my parents bought a house in Albany. This became our home. About 2 years later, my parents divorced. Mother Karen had other men in her life that I thought were just friends, but found out one of them was more than just that. As a child, you can imagine my confusion. Although I was very young, I remember little pieces. The man that wasn't just a friend only lived a block away from our home. While the divorce was happening, my dad had temporary custody of both Tom and I. While I don't remember a lot of specifics about that time, I do remember that we had a routine, and my dad really stuck to it to the best he could. Mother Karen and Gary began living together before the divorce was final. Fast forward, divorce is final, and Mother Karen gained custody of my brother Tom and I. Agreement was made through the court that my dad would get to see us every other weekend, every other birthday, every other holiday, and every Father's Day. Man, that was hard because my dad was my everything. Gary started abusing me right away. Gary would pick on me the most, although I'm not sure why. I remember Gary would hold my head underwater until I was gasping for breath. My fear of water set in. From then on, water was not my friend. Showers and baths were hard to endure. This abuse went on for a while. Then from that time to time, he would beat me from head to toe. Mother Karen would try to claim that the bruises happened when visiting my dad, but it was obviously by the coloring of the bruises that the timeline did not match. The visits with my dad felt like they were far and far between, and the time between each visit felt longer than the last. I was truly a daddy's girl and didn't want nothing more than to be with him. Gary and Mother Karen would soon break up. Mother Karen, Brother Tom, and I moved to Redmond. Later, Mother Karen met a guy named Terry who went by Bud. His place became our new home, and if memory serves me right, it was in a trailer park. Visitations were still in place with my dad, but with contingents. If my dad didn't do what Mother Karen wanted, she would use us kids as leverage to make sure she got what she wanted, or Brother Tom and I never did get to see our dad. This was heartbreaking, and he truly was my best friend. I can say my childhood wasn't all bad. Bud and Mother Karen eventually married, and later I gained 2 sisters, my sister Ashley and my sister Carrie. My dad had met someone named Linda, and they too married. I now have 2 sets of parents, and that was double the love, right? I got love from 3 of my parents. Bud was a great father figure. I really liked him. He showed me love and kindness that I didn't get when I was with Mother Karen. I was all about her, and didn't matter what it cost for her to be her way. My dad's new wife, Linda, was also a great mom figure that showed love and kindness as well. Mother Karen and Bud still lived in Redmond while building our new home, while my dad, Tim, and Linda lived in Lebanon. While I didn't care for the distance between us, I knew that distance didn't matter to my dad and Linda because they would do anything they could if needed. I was so excited when our new house in Redmond was finally finished. We got to move in and be out of the trailer park. Brother Tom and I had our own rooms, but this is where trauma occurred that led me to guilt and shame about myself. I don't remember what led up to this event or how old I was at this time. However, I remember being in Brother Tom's room upstairs where we played most of the time. Suddenly, he had started touching me inappropriately. Next thing I knew, he wanted to play house, and that was when the molestation started. Both parents were not in the house at the time, and Tom had told me to keep quiet, and if I was to say something, I wouldn't like the outcome. This happened more than once, and I was terrified. I had mentioned something to Mother Karen later, but nothing was ever mentioned or spoken about to my brother Tom. I later reported the abuse, but because it was so old, it was too late. I remember in my childhood that I wasn't in one place for a long period of time because we moved a lot. The struggle to keep up in school and maintain friends was a challenge, and I often felt alone. A few years later, Mother Karen and Bud bought property in Spray, Oregon, where he started building our log home. They put the house where we were living in on the market to sell, and once it sold, we all moved into a camp trailer at the property in Spray until the log home could be completed. There were 6 of us living in the camp trailer. This is when my role as the oldest sister came with great responsibilities. At the age of about 12, I became a mom figure to my siblings. I had no idea what to do. Who does? I'm still figuring out the kid stage of my life, let alone try and figure out the adult part. I knew I had to help and take care of them and didn't know where to start. I remember during this time, Mother Karen would be gone for a good amount of time, leaving Bud and us kids behind. I had gone to school, came home, did homework, then I was on sibling watch duty while Bud went to the sawmill to work till dark. I cooked dinner, I took care of the kids' baths. I was exhausted by the end of the night, and I knew I would have to repeat it all over again the next day. This went on for months. I don't blame Bud because I knew what he had to do to keep providing for us all. I gained resentment towards Mother Karen as I felt abandoned and was left to take care of her responsibilities. Later in my childhood, Mother Karen and Bud filed for divorce. I felt like my world was crashing down and the one father figure I had in my life consistently would not be around anymore. During the divorce is when I started lying. Although I had watched Mother Karen lie to get what she wanted and thought that meant it was okay to do, I hadn't really practiced it like I did the day I was on the court stand in front of the judge saying the very lie I was told by Mother Karen to say so she could gain custody of my sisters. This is when I found out the abuse that happened to me from my brother Tom had now happened to my sister Ashley. She was just a toddler. This had crushed my relationship with Bud and tore my heart out, as I was not going to see my sisters again. I had a close relationship with my sisters as a mom figure over just a sister relationship due to taking care of them as I had done. So this really hit me. I can't really put into words, but I felt empty inside. Once the divorce had become final, Bud got custody of Ashley and Carrie, and as he should, and that would be the last time I would see them and Bud together. I went back and forth between my mother Karen and Dad's and Linda's. I was losing the consistency and routine in my life. I felt all my hope and love was gone. Bud kept the house in Spray, and Mother Karen, Brother Tom, and I moved to Eugene. In my mind, I had lost my sisters. I had lost my dad, Bud, losing the little time I had with my dad and Linda, my security, my hope, while losing myself in the mix of it all. Music was my escape. I loved to sing. I felt as if I was shutting out the world for just a split second to have a little peace. I skipped school, went to parties, and spun out of control. By the age of 17, I moved out of my mother Karen's home and was on my own. I met a guy, moved in. Rewind a few years. The visits with my dad and Linda were still the same, but Linda fell ill. She was battling diabetes and maintained it very well, till 3 years before she passed. My dad's job was driving truck, so with Linda feeling ill and living in the hospital, those 3 years felt like a century. My dad was on the road more and more, and my visits were less and less. I remember the day very well when I got a phone call from my dad on August 8th, 1997, that it was time Linda wanted to say her goodbyes. I was shaken up, not sure what to do. I know I hadn't talked about her much, but she was my mom at heart. She was there for my troubles, my boy problems, female questions, and whatever else I may need. She was my rock, even when I didn't see her much. She was everything a mom should be and more. When I was with her and my dad, my childhood was great. I felt the love a child should. So I drove to the hospital where she was, and we all gathered and said our goodbyes. There was not a dry eye in the room, but this is what she wanted. It was not long after she closed her eyes and passed. As you can imagine, I lost the only mom figure I have ever known growing up, and my world was ultimately crushed. Her funeral service was a week later. Family and friends gathered to pay their respects. Music was playing Bob Seger and Elvis Presley, two of her favorite artists. Not only have I lost the consistency of a dad figure, my sisters, I have now lost my mom figure, and now I don't care about anything. I shoved feelings down. My coping mechanisms were alcohol and drugs, and my addictions became the worst they had ever been. I was lost, confused as to why I was losing the people in my life I love so very much. In 1998, I found I was pregnant with my daughter. I was still with her dad at this time. I knew I needed to get right, so I stopped the alcohol and drugs while pregnant. My daughter Shannon was born September 23rd, 1999. She is my world. I felt at the time I was starting to do something right with my life. Since I had some experience with taking care of the little one, I was excited, but I was scared at the same time. Parenting doesn't come with a handbook. Lord knows I made a lot of mistakes. About 2 years later, her dad and I split. He was out of the picture for the most part, only around when convenient. This was not a pretty breakup. During this time, my drug of choice was marijuana. I was using more and more while other drugs were being tested and tried. Not too long after I met my husband, Brandon, he took my daughter in as his own. This is the time that my pattern of codependency really took off. I didn't know how to do things on my own or even feel like I could do them, so I bounced from one relationship to another. Good news is I have Bud and my sisters back in my life, and I met Bud's new wife, Bonnie. I felt like I was getting my stability back, but didn't know how to embrace it, afraid I would lose it again, and didn't want to go through that pain. Brandon and I found out I was pregnant again and gave birth to our son on September 23rd, 2004. About a year later, Brandon and I were married. We had great times and felt our relationship was what I dreamed it would be and more. After our son was born, I was having a hard time losing the weight. I had become the heaviest I had ever been, even when I was pregnant. Brandon made me feel like I wasn't someone he wanted to be around or be with, so I cheated on him with someone who made me feel wanted, always told me I was beautiful and how beautiful I was, and put my kids in the middle of it. This had gone on for 3 years. I swore I wouldn't do the same as Mother Karen had done to us kids, but here I am doing that very same thing. Eventually, Brandon and I divorced. He gained custody of our son, while I had every other Thursday to Tuesday visitation. While my kids were growing up, I was trying to live my childhood through them, which killed our relationship. I didn't know how to break the cycle. I had cheated and became the mom and woman I swore I would never be. The world was yet again spiraling out of control, and my drugs had become my center, my priority. I lied to the ones who loved me the most about my drug use and lied to myself that I needed help. Now that Bud and my sisters are back in my life, I gained another mom figure, Bonnie. She reminds me so much of Linda, and I was so happy to have this again. Hearing about my sister's lives started to become jealous. They lived a life I dreamed of. I didn't grow up in a faith-based home or went to church or even believed in God. Why would I want to? Because God wouldn't put me through the trauma I had in my life. He wouldn't have the people who mean the most to me be out of my life. I was full of anger, rage, abandonment, fear, and feelings of God. How could God exist? And my experiences all be negative? As my relationship grew with Bonnie, Bud, and my sisters, I watched as they followed God and lived with Him as the center of their life. I became curious but hesitant. Later, July 24th, 2021, I decided I wanted God to be part of my life, and I was baptized. Thank you. I really didn't know what it all meant, but wanted my life with Him. I was still doing my drug of choice, not taking it as serious as I should have to quit. Events and choices I was making in my life had led to hit rock bottom. I had burnt bridges, lost trust in relationship that meant the most to me. My mom, Bonnie, had found Celebrate Recovery through a friend of hers and gave me contact information. This is when reached out to Nicole at Celebrate Recovery. She told me when the next meeting would be and the location. On October 18th, 2021, I came through those front doors terrified, nervous, scared, but everyone welcomed me with open arms. This was the start of my recovery. I quit my drug that day, cold turkey, and haven't looked back. As I continue this journey, I am learning about God. I joined the Women's Step Study Group. Through this program, my relationship with God has started. Learning about His sacrifices, understanding His unconditional love He has for me, even for the sins I had done in my life. There is not a particular step in this program that was any greater than the other for me. Each step had its own part in healing process that I am eager to do again. The Bible says in Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean out on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him. He will make your path straight. When I am struggling and thinking I need an out again, when I think about picking up that joint, I remember God is with me. In Josiah 1:9, and Joseph, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. My tendency to lie to others is gone. I now know that I can be honest and not worry about what others think. This is part of my healing process and still part of finding out who I am. Knowing I can count on God and my forever family, I have the support and true love in my life now. And going through my recovery, I now realize that I am not alone anymore. My relationship with God grows stronger every day. I learn more about Him and His Word. My days start and end with His Word. James 4:7-8 says, submit yourself then to God. Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts. Once I gave my life to God, things started to fall into place. I started seeing things with a clear light. It wasn't so dark anymore. Writing a testimony is a lot. I wasn't sure what to keep in and what to leave out. I wanted it to be perfect, but it's my story. Nothing is ever perfect except the love from God. The story I shared with you, I shared from my heart. God wants to save you, heal you, restore you, guide you, and He has done that for me and others. His work is never done. He loves us all no matter what baggage we come to Him with. He has no judgment, no shame, just love for us and use us to bless others. I recently graduated my first CR 12-step program. And then not long after, Jonathan and Nicole asked me to be part of the leadership team. Not going to lie, the fear set in, but when I was was honored that Jonathan and Nicole have faith and love for me to be a part of the team. CR, relationship, life, recovery, this has all been a process for me. Once I started the process, I was beginning to understand. I am thankful for the process because I am all in. Why not? CR and the continued learning about God has had a huge impact in my life. Remember, I didn't have the upbringing of God and thought he wasn't real. Now look, I can't get enough of him. My kids notice, and so do others. I talk about it when I have the chance, and that is daily. My relationship with my kids has had healing. My bond with my sisters and parents, Tim, Bud, and Bonnie, has grown stronger, and I feel loved again. I am so grateful for this entire process and that God has done in my life in such a short amount of time. I am currently signed up for my second step study. And I am in leadership training and had the opportunity to go to Summit this year. I took everything in like a sponge. Wow, what an experience that I will treasure for a lifetime. Sharing the love of God has been an added joy in my life and exciting at the same time. I have people I can count on, and now for the first time, people can count on me. My daughter knows I will be there to help with my grandson and my unborn grandchild when needed. My son knows I will be to every event possible, and others know I will be there for them too. I am thankful for those who kept pushing me forward. Thank you to those who continue to pray for me in this process, and thank you to myself for not giving up. I am truly thankful for this program that has changed my life and helped me be a better person with the help of God. Although I didn't have God in my life before, I am very thankful he is now. He is my peace, my comfort, my guidance, my rock. I still have my struggles, but I am not alone. I have God in my support system. There are no words that I can express how that feels except love. I love celebrating victories with Jesus and my fellow brothers and sisters. I am so grateful for the victory over my drug addiction. For the newcomers, if this is your first time at CR tonight, I want to encourage you to come back. Everyone has a story, and I hope to hear yours. Every story matters, and we want to share the love of God with you. My life is just beginning, and I am excited to be on this journey. Thank you for letting me share, and I hope my journey lends someone hope tonight because it is worth it.